Alright, this screencast is in response to number 19 on the most recent homework, which says solve by completing the square. And we need to talk a little bit about how completing the square works. Alright, so when I have a problem like this, x squared minus 8x plus 41, one of the first things I do when I complete the square, start off with open parentheses and copy down the x squared minus 8x. Then I leave myself a little bit of room right here. And then I can put the plus 41 on the outside of that. And I'll show you in the next step here why I'm leaving a little bit of room there. When it says to complete the square, what we want to do is we want to take half of that middle coefficient right there. In this case, it'd be the negative 8 would be our middle coefficient. So what we want to do is take half of that, and then we want to square that. Okay, so that gives me negative 4, right? Then we want to square that, and that's going to give me positive 16. So half of the middle, square it, and then we're going to add that to the inside the parentheses like that. Okay, but in algebra, the old rule says we can do anything we want over here to the left side of the equal sign, so long as we do the same thing to the right side of the equal sign like that. Okay, so if I add 16 over on the left side, I've also got to add 16 over on the right side as well. Okay, so now what that really sets me up to do is to factor that part in parentheses. Alright, because now if I go through and I try to factor this in parentheses here, it's going to end up being a perfect a binomial squared, okay, like x plus or minus something squared. In this case, this right here, what I have in parentheses, is actually going to factor out to be x minus 4 times x minus 4. Okay, because remember, I'm looking for two things that add to be negative 8, and the same two things multiply to be 16. When you're completing the square, when you find that half of the middle term and you square it, really this part right here, the negative 4 in this case, right before you square it, is what is going to be as part of what this part of the problem factors into right here. Okay, so it's going to be x minus 4 squared, and if I was to go back and FOIL that back out, I would get what I have in the previous step here. Okay, alright, well, now we're set up pretty well, because what we have to do at this point is try and solve. The idea is to get the x plus or minus whatever squared by itself over here on the left side, and then get just a plain old number over here on the right side. Okay, so I've got x minus 4 squared, and 16 minus 41 is going to give me negative 25. Okay, we always want to get our problem looking like this right here. The idea is that we are going to take the square root of both sides. So we do that, square root of x minus 4 squared, and we do that. But when we take the square root of a negative number, we end up getting an imaginary number. Okay, so here, the square root of x minus 4 squared is just going to be x minus 4. Okay, it undoes that squaring. Over here, the square root of negative 25 is going to be 5 because the square root of 25 is 5, but then we put an I next to the 5. And I is what's known as the imaginary unit, or the complex unit, and it's really known as the square root of negative 1. And the reason that square root of negative 25 equals 5i is because square root of negative 25 really can be thought of as the square root of 25 times the square root of negative 1. And the square root of negative 1 would be I, like that. Okay, so whenever I take the square root of a negative, I think about it as factoring out a square root of negative 1 from that to get that I term right there. However, when you take the square root of 25, really that is positive and negative 5. Briefly, the reason being because positive 5 squared is equal to 25, and negative 5 squared is also equal to 25. Okay, so when you take the square root of 25, it's positive and negative 5 for this reason right here. Okay. Likewise, if you took the square root of 36, it would be positive and negative 6 for the same reason. Alright, so now I've really got this to where I can break it down into two problems. I've got x minus 4 is equal to the positive 5i and x minus 4 is equal to the negative 5i, like that, because it's both positive and negative, two of them in fact. Further, when I go to solve this, I can just add 4 to both sides and get x is equal to 5i plus 4 as one of my answers. And then of course over here I'm going to get x is equal to negative 5i plus 4 as my second answer. And that is what I have for number 20, I believe is what that problem was. We'll go check or number 19 rather is what that problem was. Let's go check our answer, make sure we got it right. 4 plus 5i, 4 minus 5i, perfect. Okay, and I will cover number 21 and 22, 23, and 24, I believe, in the next few screencasts.